Sabrina 70s comic, issue 64. The story starts out with a mystery going on, because Hilda looks like she's in a trance. Zelda says that she hasn't slept in weeks because she has insomnia. That would kill her. You wouldn't even survive 1 week without sleep. And she looks human, so she is human. She would just use a potion to cure this much earlier. Sabrina wants to cure her by zapping up a world-renowned hypnotist. What took her so long? Wouldn't Sabrina have noticed that Hilda was in a trance from insomnia weeks ago? I assumed she just came home, after weeks away from it. Realistically, when Sabrina warps the hypnotist here, he asks how he got here and thinks he's really forgetful if he doesn't remember coming here. Hilda somehow doesn't believe that he's a hypnotist. She's a witch. She has no reason to be skeptical. She doesn't believe he can hypnotize people, which makes sense since she's only familiar with witches doing that. She tells him to hypnotize Sabrina instead. She's told to concentrate on this pendant and feel like she's floating. She's told to believe that she's a frog. Oh, even though Sabrina looked hypnotized, the story doesn't get to progress naturally because Hilda turned Sabrina into a frog instead when she wanted to prove the hypnotist was bunk. I thought Sabrina would turn herself into a frog. Sabrina could have just as easily been pretending to be hypnotized. Maybe Hilda knew that. The hypnotist sees her turn into a frog, and all he says is, "That was some spell. I better snap you out of it." Really? That was dumb. He should at least say that he thinks he's dreaming, but then he'd do stupid things. Because Hilda's still inexplicably mad, he says he'll make Sabrina believe she's a chicken. So Hilda turns Sabrina into a chicken. And he says he's so good he frightens himself. Hilda casts a spell to turn her back to normal. You'd think she'd want to get her insomnia cured and stop messing around. And while she's a chicken, Sabrina knocks a jar onto her head, putting her to sleep. So Sabrina thinks Nodo's cured her. And he wants to get out of this profession because he's scared to have this much power over people. I think he should be assuming they have the power since he got warped here and doesn't remember how he got here. In the next story, a kid calls Hilda funny looking to her face and Sabrina expects him to believe that she isn't. Sabrina calls him not nice for calling Hilda ugly and tells Hilda that she's babysitting the brat for a while. Why isn't this the same brat from last time? Clarence. What's the point of a different character? Sabrina says she has to get ready for a party tonight. Wait, at the same day that she's babysitting? And Hilda's fine with her having a party. She's quite the lenient parent. At least that doesn't cause conflict. She expects and trusts Hilda to entertain the brat while she washes her hair. Really? Hilda's mad at the idea, but doesn't just say no. Sabrina has the lame excuse that he's just trying to be cute. I'd hate to see her as a mother then. He squirts Hilda with a grey goop gun, and Sabrina urges Hilda to be patient with him, using his age as a dumb excuse. Despite Hilda threatening to plant him in the backyard, Sabrina somehow still trusts her alone with them, and hopes to distract her into reading him a story. Why didn't she just freeze him in time the entire time she was babysitting him? Realistically, he doesn't want to hear any dumb little kid story. He wants to hear something grown up. She wants to tell him about a scary ghost in a haunted house. He doesn't believe in ghosts, so she zaps up a ghost. He thinks that's really cool and asks Sabrina how she did that. Hilda's insulted that he thinks Sabrina could look like this. Well, she could, if she transformed herself with magic. Hilda changes the ghost to look like a headless man holding his head. And he asks her to show him how to do that, thinking that she's terrific. Well, that's sweet, but she has every reason to think he's insane if this is his only reaction. This reaction would make sense if he was a witch in the witch world who's learning how to use his own powers, but he has no reason to think he can use powers when she's just like a witch. So obviously she's the witch and he's not. It's fine for Hilda to reveal magic to him because he's just a powerless kid nobody would ever believe. He gets bored of this already and asks for some ice cream and cookies. She immediately gives him some to keep his mouth closed. He stupidly pushes his luck with her at this point by saying ungratefully that he could eat more than that. Surprisingly, she makes him happy instead and makes the ice cream and cookies grow, expecting him to eat all that. Sabrina says she doesn't want him to get sick from eating all that. Gee, that sure is nice of her. But it's not nice of her to not even let him take a single bite. She makes them disappear and says she'd better take him home. Yeah, why did she take him to Hilda in the first place? She stayed in the other house the last time she babysitted. Hilda says that's a great idea, and Horace is reluctant to go because he was starting to enjoy himself, and calls her entertaining. So Hilda is surprised at the end, remarking that there's some mortals even witches can't terrify. In the next story, Sabrina asks Hilda why she resurrected an apparently awful old pot from the cellar. It's not awful, it's just a small cauldron. She says that dreadful Dolly is dropping in for lunch. Hilda complains that Dolly's too old-fashioned to go with new things. Why is Hilda complaining about this? She's still wearing a witch costume, so she's no better. How could Dolly be more old-fashioned than her? Well, it's not like Hilda's as old-fashioned as possible because she lets Sabrina dress like a modern teenage girl and even go to school instead of expecting her to stay at home and do the cleaning. Sabrina complains about the awful smell as Hilda prepares Dolly's favorite recipe as usual. Sabrina says that it smells like a burning rubber plantation. Then how could this be Dolly's favorite recipe? How could she enjoy it? Sabrina's kind of arbitrary in thinking the ingredients are gross. If she said chicken wings and eggs, she wouldn't think it's gross. How does she know vulture wings and dragon eggs taste any worse? Hilda would have made her eat some. Hilda says that once the old crone goes, they'll air out the place. Dolly shows up, and apparently she likes being called dreadful. Sabrina doesn't want to join them in the dining room, making up an excuse that she just had a piece of pizza, which is dismissed as trash. She doesn't want Harvey to meet Dolly because some things just can't be explained away. I guess because it's already weird enough that Hilda cosplays as a witch all the time. Another one would be too suspicious. Sabrina tells Harvey that they just waxed the entry and he should go in the kitchen door. He tells her not to get near him because he has an awful cold, and yet he still came to visit her. I don't know if that means he really loves her because he wants to spend time with her anyways, or he doesn't care about her because he's risking her getting sick. He's cheated on her before, so it's gotta be the latter. Sabrina thinks that the cauldron just screams witchcraft, so she replaces it with something Harvey wouldn't question. She pours the stuff from the cauldron into some yellow thing and carries the black pot to the cellar downstairs instead of simply warping it there, planning on washing it later. Harvey reveals that he can't smell or taste anything because his cold is so bad. I have a cold all the time. That's not how colds work. But at least the explanation that he's sick and can't smell explains away why he doesn't smell the foreign witch recipe. He's hungry because he somehow hasn't eaten all day. Maybe because he's been nauseous, so he tastes the brew that's cooking. Sabrina completely overreacts and tells him to go home and take all the Pepto-Siltza or whatever in his house. Logically, he should ask his mom for confirmation about trying to take all the Pepto-Bismol at once, because that would overdose him. What is Sabrina thinking? Obviously, witches would have the same biology and be able to digest the same things because they look like humans. The story ends with fire coming out of his mouth and ears, and somehow he doesn't even notice, as his hands and arms get all hairy and his hair stands up on end. Really? The story's ending there? I wanted to see just how old-fashioned Dolly was, if even Hilda didn't like her. A lot of mortals are gonna have to have their memory of this erased. Sabrina would just point and undo this problem, and why would Dolly want to drink this brew as her favorite recipe if it do this to her? In the next story, Hilda and Zelda think they're gonna have fun at the carnival in town. Sabrina thinks they're overreacting. Zelda asks Hilda to remember how often they used to go to a carnival in the happiest days of their lives. Hilda wants to win some prizes, knocking off 3 bottles with 1 pitch. She knocks off 9 of them right away with her magical charm ball pitch. I didn't see the word zap anywhere, but she winked. So that means she used magic anyways, which makes this believable. Zelda wins the hammer minigame, presumably with her magic, which wins some prizes for her. It's justified because if you saw a previous story in the comic, you know that these games are all rigged to be impossible to win. So they have every reason to cheat. Hilda's told that she'll win a prize if she covers up a red circle with 6 silver discs, and he smirks thinking that it can't be done. She uses her magic to make 1 disc large enough. She's not even remotely subtle, doing it right in front of him. She could have made all of the discs slightly larger and grow one of them when she wanted to. Sabrina helps them carry some of the dolls they won, as I wonder why. Do they just want the prizes because they're prizes? What would proudly stereotypical witches ever do with stuffed animals? We never see them destroy any. And they cheated, so there's not much satisfaction. Logically, this isn't why they want to win the dolls. Out of nowhere, it turns out that both Zelda and Hilda want to give all their prizes to the orphans, who happen to be in front of the carnival in a green bus. That's good, and we did see one story that proved that Hilda has a soft side for children. but it's the same story that proves that she wants to keep that a secret from everyone. Just like the last time this happened. It sure is convenient that a bus full of orphans shows up right away. I'm so glad the story doesn't end with Della appearing and nagging them all for this. This seems kind of out of character for Hilda at this point. She officially has no reason to side with Della over Sabrina doing good deeds too much then. The first story, after making me wonder how Hilda survived weeks without sleep, is about Sabrina warping a hypnotist to her to try to cure her insomnia. Hilda refuses to give him a chance and doesn't even let things progress naturally, just transforming Sabrina into animals instead. Shockingly, he doesn't scream and freak out after the first time. The story ends with Hilda getting hit in the head by a jar that Sabrina knocked over and passing out. She could just get cured by a witch doctor of her head injury. But wait, then why did she have to have her arm in a sling earlier? Was it only in there until she could get a cure from a witch doctor? Why didn't she get her insomnia cured with a witch doctor potion right away? This story wasted its potential. It could have been about Hilda being hypnotized into being nice, and then Sabrina might want her undone because she's become too much of a doormat. Like Harvey could take advantage of her too much. In the second story, once again there's a story where a witch is a great babysitter to a kid. And this time it's Hilda of all people, because she'll do anything to shut him up, aside from simply turning him into an object, or freezing him in time, like I'd expect. Because she likes humoring Sabrina that much. Why didn't she just tell her to go to his house right away? He insulted her the minute he saw her. As confusing as it was nice how Hilda was being nice to him and he just thought she was cool instead of freaking out. Maybe he's supposed to be young enough that makes sense? The third story wastes the idea of a character too old-fashioned for even Hilda, because all she does to complain is say that pizza is bad. While Harvey unknowingly drinks a potion because he can't smell from his cold, and has to rush home while transformed into a monster. You can still smell stuff when you have a cold. Why would a potion like that even exist? Witches would be able to imagine themselves like that just fine. And they'd have plenty of other ways to scare someone. And this was supposed to be Dolly's favorite recipe? I thought Dolly would insult Sabrina for being a modern teenager allowed to go to school, and insult Hilda for letting her be that way. That'd be annoying though. Then why have a character like her? It's confusing to have Hilda in this role when she's the old-fashioned witch. The final story is boring because it's just another story where a witch cheats to win all the games at the carnival. And even give the prizes to orphans, just like the last time this happened. It's more sweet and also way more confusing that Hilda does this too. And this is the whole reason she wants the prizes. The story was worth it for showing us at least one new carnival game. The disc covering game. Even if it wasn't memorable. And for giving a huge pet the dog moment for Hilda after everything she's done. It was shown to us before that she has a soft side for children, in one story. It's just confusing that the story doesn't even lampshade how she's acting out of character and remind us that she's normally a proud evil witch. She just needs to say that she has a soft spot for young orphans. She could be an orphan herself.